Today, our topic is streaming, and we've got an excellent person to talk to us about it. Two, not just one, but two. It's Oh, I won't go into those old commercials. But Jay Tyler and Tony Gervasi are with us, and he's from Wheatstone and GatesAir. And Tony, Jay, why don't you take over first? And you've got the screen when you want it.
Great. Yeah, the double mint spearmint commercials. Double the pleasure, double the fun.
Exactly.
That's right. That's right. And it's funny you're talking about that because I made some parodies about the duo. One of the things we're going to be talking about today is our third product. Well, first of all, thank you guys for attending. I appreciate it. You know, some of you guys didn't get to go to NAB. Some of you that went to NAB were extremely busy. And if not, probably the people you want to talk to were probably extremely busy. And so I appreciate you giving us the time. Behind me right here is our big lab, Wheatstone Audio Lab. We've got like about 200 physical blades sprinkled throughout this room where we do all of our new testing and all of our new releases for stuff. As many as you know, Wheatstone's a manufacturer here in the United States. I like to tell people we invent it, we design it, we manufacture it, we test it, we ship it, and then we support it here from New Bern, North Carolina. Although we do got some amazing support guys on the West Coast and in Texas, it all comes out from, Club Wheat here in New Bern. One of the latest things that we introduced this year, and I'll say sort of an NAB recap. We introduced a new processor, a high-end FM processor for under $5,000 called the Neuron. We introduced our streaming box. We've got Navigator 5. So if you guys are WheatNet users out there, we've got a whole new set of tools in Navigator 5. For the Rivendell users and WheatNet users, we finally finished our Linux driver. Tony's going to talk about our Linux driver a little later today because we've taken that Linux driver and we put that into the Interplex Ascent. And that allows Ascent users now to plug their Ascent into the Wheatstone network and share 24 channels of audio and a bunch of GPO between it. So we were busy this year, and I'm proud to say all the stuff that we introduced at NAB this year, we're actually shipping, delivering, and so it wasn't just like an introduction. It was like, hey, we've got products, we finished them, we've got manuals, and now we're shipping everything. So I'm really proud of our team for doing that because I've been at Wheatstone for 29 years, and in the old days, in the 90s, we could build a $200,000 television console with 3 engineers, mechanical guy, a guy doing the circuit cards, and another guy doing, the EPROMs and stuff like that. Nowadays, even like the little duo I'm going to talk about, a streaming box, it still took a team of 5 or 6 people. I mean, all together, we had Kelly, we had Karina, we had Dave, we had Rick, Gary, Patty, and Dominic. And those are the people at Wheatstone that it just took to create a little streaming product. So yeah, it's neat. You guys probably, another big topic too, while we're on it, was tariffs and stuff. It seems like all of that stuff has sort of subsided. We were a little nervous at first, to see how things were. We buy a handful of things from China. Out of our probably 30,000 part numbers, we probably have 150 to 100 components that we actually import directly from China. We're not too affected by that, so we'll see how that shakes out in the future. One of the things that we wanted to talk about today, and I'm going to talk about it for a little while, and then I've gotten connected to it, and I'm going to take you through it from front end to back end, is our new streaming box. Wheatstone got into streaming like 5 or 6 years ago. A lot of our clients were using Windows machines, various programs, Breakaway, Sound4 stuff, the Orban cards, and all of that stuff worked really well. It was the PCs themselves that became unreliable and were subject to Windows updates, then which were subject to lots of silence on the streams until the engineers went in and reset the sample rate or started the service again. So there was a big call to Wheatstone from our users. Mainly, the first one was Town Square. They wanted to do like 80 markets right away. And then Cox and a few others. So about 5 years ago, we got into streaming. We were making, 8-channel boxes that did metadata, EQ dynamics. Then our larger customers wanted that stuff into server-based products. So we took our Wheatstream technology and we put it into a Dell server, and we can spin up 32 or 64 channels of streaming in the server. Well, after a couple of years of doing that, Barry, we realized that we were missing a big part of the industry, and that was the middle and small market radio stations. Um, just the houses of worship, LPFMs. Actually, Floyd Turner in Evansville, Indiana, bought the first duo right off the show floor because he's got a little LPFM. And so he bought that from us. So one of the things when we set out to make the streaming products, obviously we wanted to make them WheatNet, right? It's an IP world. But we didn't stop there. So we have 3 products. We have the Wheatstream, we have the Stream Blade, and now we have the Duo. All of those except Livewire, Ravenna, AES 67, any really RTP audio stream. So none of them are really Wheatstone centric. The nice thing for the Wheatstone users that if you use any of these products, you plug them into the Cisco and they just populate in your navigator so you see sources and destinations. So this is true across the line. Something else that we do really well in the streaming environment is not only do we give you an encoded output for your CDN, for the Wheatstone users, we drop that processed audio back in your matrix as a source. So at that point, you can tweak and listen real time to your processing settings. Those of you guys that may have a multi-channel streamer and have WheatNet, you could also use these boxes for HD 2, 3s, and 4s. We're not using any clipping. And that was interesting when we first built the premise of the streaming boxes at the beginning was we took the experience that we had with HD radio. A lot of the guys, first rounds, we all took our FM stuff and we tried to apply it to streaming. It was a totally different beast. And how Wheatstone came up with all of its streaming algorithms and everything was by a clean sheet of paper. And how we got there was Jeff Keith, who was a processing god and really a scientist, more like Bob Orban. He started modeling these things in MATLAB. MATLAB's a big, huge DSP farms with these guys that I say they can't type, they can't code, actually do some testing and modeling with algorithms that they design. Then Rick Bidlack, who's from Tukwila, Seattle, Washington, he's the Vox Pro guy. He never wrote a compressor or EQ or dynamics in his life. He started working with Jeff, and Vox Pro was pretty much set for a little while. So we started building these algorithms. And so we started with a clean sheet of paper. And I'll tell you, the broadcast engineers out there, one of the things that I noticed once we got into streaming, and it was a good surprise, and it was mainly to the Wheatstone tech, was we didn't have to wait for a good song to make it sound great. And processing is extremely subjective. And I spent many a nights out in the fields messing around with people. And Gary Klein, rest in peace, in the back of this Mercedes in Atlanta, with my ears bleeding, listening to audio processing. And then we'd always get it to sound good at night with the music. And then we come in the morning and listen to the microphones. And it was like, oh my God, we got to fix that. I didn't see that with our streaming box. I never heard, and I sat back and watched. I never heard the guy say, oh, wait, we got to wait for another song to come on, or that's an MP3 file, or that may not be a good cut. All of the excuses that I heard with all of these FM boxes all my life sort of went away with the streaming. And one of the big things about the Wheatstone streaming processing is it's consistent. We control it on the front end, just like when all the broadcasters learned what an Ariane was or what a compeller would do for you. They all had a particular purpose and a place in front of the main processors. And that's one of the things we did really, really well in our stream. So when people feed them with all different formats, and then again with consolidation, with streams, you really have an opportunity to have all your markets sound the same. If you're iHeart and you've got a station in all these cities in New York, you're not going to have the same transmitter. You're not going to have the same antenna. You're not going to have the same exciter. So you can take that Omnia 9 processor and use the iHeart preset and move it around, but it's going to sound different. With the streaming stuff, the guys at Town Square figured this out. They were all using the same library, except for the live stuff. They were able to feed these boxes. And if you listen to any of the country streams from Town Square, they all sound similar. It sounds really good. So we were able to do that in the streaming world. So, 5 years into it, as I said, what we're talking about today was the Duo. We had to come up with a more affordable box for mid and small markets. Our 3-channel box started at like $5,800 for the last few years. So what we did, and we set out this year to take that product, the streaming technology, and put it in a package. And we didn't want to give you some little nook with a front end or a back end. So we started with a clean sheet of paper, and I'll show you the back of it. So you've got Ethernet, you got a WAN and a LAN jack. Obviously, you got to connect out to your CDN. You've got analog inputs and digital inputs and outputs. And the reason we did the onboard inputs and outputs, if you're using analog consoles, you're using old PR&E stuff, you don't have an IP system, go ahead and go right in analog. You've got 2 streams per box. So every single box with a Duo, you'll have 2 inputs. You can have analog or digital. We also give you the digital and analog outputs. If you're a totally analog plant and you wanted to monitor those channels, you have analog outs. You can bring them up on a board. You can set them into your router. You can put them onto a set of Fostex. The same thing with the digital. If you were using this as maybe one channel as your primary stream, and then you wanted to tweak an HD2, you could use the AES out for that. As you'll see, it's really, really simple inside. It's one main card that we built. And then over here, we've got our Wheatstone power supply. All right. It's wasn't a store-bought supply. It's a purpose-built power supply for this appliance. And the reason I call it appliance is just because, like every single blade, it runs Linux. No Windows updates. You just put it in. One thing you'll never find on any Wheatstone piece of equipment anywhere is a power switch. All of our stuff is meant to be plugged in once and leave it on for the rest of its life, unless you got to do an IP address change or a software update, and then we ask you to reboot it once or twice through its life. So the hardware platform's been really, really good. It's a Linux-based device, and once you put them on the network, they just sort of work. Any questions about our hardware at all, or our philosophies before I take you through the box? Tony?
No.
You sure? Okay. You're supposed to be on my ringer and ask me questions. I loaded you with questions before this whole thing, just for this.
I want to talk about using it for HD2 and 3, though, when we're done, because I think that is a great purpose for this box.
All right. So let me share this with
2,
you.
3, and 4.
Yeah. All right. Something that's new for Wheatstone with this box was an HTML5 interface. We've always had dedicated GUIs forever. So we asked our tech guys to give us a new HTML5 interface. So we're currently working on this in my Mac. Most of the Wheatstone applications, there were dedicated PC applications. So when you launch, and all we're doing is we're just simply talking to a hardware box here at the office. So you'll notice we have stream 1 and we have stream 2. Our first stream, we have you obviously source gain. We've got EQ, we've got dynamics, we've got some bass control, we got loudness control. First and foremost, for everybody on this call, we've got like 100 presets or a bunch of them. So usually with everything, I usually grab the quick start myself, get online, then you've got your EQ, and this is where you're going to dial your sound in. If you're a Wheatstone customer, you can listen to it on a router. You can listen to it in headphones. Any blade, any console in the system, you can listen to that real time. Depending on your CDN, it takes a little bit while round trip to actually listen to it through your encoder. So we give you those local. Once you've got your desired sound for your stream, or just grab the preset and away you went, you have protocols. We've got HLS, IceCast, RTP, RTMP. We also work with Triton. So the Triton algorithms are built right into our box here. So you have no problem to stream to Triton or any of your other CDN. You'll notice stream 1, output 1, stream 1, output 2, 3, and 4. This is the same across all the Wheatstone streaming boxes. Every single input gives you 4 outputs. So you might do an RTP stream here. Here we're going to Triton. You might do an IceCast as far as disaster recovery to get around your STL. Send that right out to the transmitter site. So that gives us 4 outputs. And then again, this guy gives you stream 1 and 2. If we were active here, you would see these little green lights. We got little jelly beans here that light green for stream 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's a scheduler built into it. If you wanted to switch Major League Baseball, sports, Christmas, anything like that. So there's a built-in scheduler. Metadata. So you've got, depending on your automation systems, we've got a whole suite of filters that you can use, but we're able to get your metadata from your automation system through the box, tied to the audio, sent up to your CDN. Logs. So we've got logs over to the right-hand side here. We've got the status of the stream. The box is smart. It's a carryover from the bigger guys. We give you full logging so we know what happened, whether you had a disconnect, power outage, your CDN went down. It's smart. It sort of keeps track, keeps everybody honest, keeps your infrastructure up to date. So we went through the logs going on. We've got our network configuration here. You've got the 2 ports on the back. One's going to be WheatNet. One's going to go out to the outside world. Time, inputs and outputs. We've got, right now we're using WheatNet because we're plugged into our Wheatstone system. We've got AES 67 here coming in, or we've got the onboard analog digital converters or sample rate converters to bring you whatever source you want. So you've got multiple ways to ingest audio into it. I like to call it a garbage disposal. The guys here really don't like that term, but literally we can ingest anything. And once we've got it, we can process it, we can encode it, and we can send it out to your CDN. Some utilities here, we give you some stuff to do backups. Updates are pretty easy. It's a Linux box, so it just sort of runs. Over here, we've got AGC, so we've got 5 bands of AGC. We don't give you a ton of controls. The presets are so good. The front end of the box controls the audio so well. I don't see people reaching in here and, moving 20 or 30 levers. You sort of grab a preset, set your EQ, and away you go. So that's pretty much it on the Duo. We've probably shipped about 20 since NAB so far. The only thing that's new for us, and let me do this, stop sharing. Oops, there he goes. The only thing really new for us and your customers was this card. I think it took us a couple weeks to make the card. It was made in Binghamton, New York. It showed up. We put all the chips on it. We are on Rev C or Rev B. So that means we'd had 3. We don't call the first Rev anything. We had Rev A, and now our shipping version is Rev B. Pretty proud of the guys. It's probably like an 8 or 10 layer card. So any questions all on the streaming product?
Jay, you mentioned you have 100 presets.
Yeah.
This is an issue for many stations, I think, that want to run MP3s versus WAV. And I'd like to hear you talk about that for a moment. And also, sometimes these presets, once you set one, do you really need to mess with it very much?
Not anymore. I mean, one thing is we think about, everybody complains about MP3s. Everybody complains about codec audio. And these are the audio purists. Bob Orban, Frank Foti, Jeff Keith, Stefan, these guys get all worked up. This is the world we live in. I mean, it is. So we have to deal with it. And so we assume, and when we do testing, Barry, we will take a codec feed from a radio station and we'll run that into our FM boxes. Most of the morning shows here in Eastern Carolina are coming across to barracks or stuff. Very rarely are we tweaking and listening to processing for live audio or a linear audio library. So we just assume right now everything's going to be crappy audio and we just have to deal with it. And so the guys that aren't reusing the stuff from the 80s and 90s, the Hans and these guys and Leif that understand about the declippers and stuff and understand what happens to the audio, they've dealt with it. So it's just something that we have to deal with. I think the days of having a perfect library and linear audio are done. And when you do hear those cuts, I think they sound better. But I think, and I'm pretty sure we're all processing for, the stuff in the middle.
One of the things
it's just the way it is.
One of the things, of course, that we find, depending on the age of a facility, is how many times do we go A to D, D to A, A to D, D to A, and as you go through the different codecs, you can have some deterioration.
Yeah, but people now, I mean, people are treating streams as much as they are on air. I mean, 5 or 6 years ago, iHeart engineers, Hubbard guys, Beasley guys were told that you treat your streaming product like you do your transmitter. You don't work on them during the day. We check with programming to see what's going to be on them when you want to do maintenance. You need maintenance windows to do your streams. That was one of the big push for the Linux boxes for us. But you asked about the presets. No, I think you grab a preset now. Once you get, it's all about level control, gain structure. And once you set your incoming level, because if you start clipping the input, then you're done. I don't care what you do later on. Once it's gone, it's gone. So I think, you leave yourself some headroom. In our box, it's all in the AGC anyways. That's what gives us the consistency between tracks, cuts, good files, and bad files. We've what we call an intelligent AGC. We sort of look at the energy coming in, and then we adjust a preset ahead of your AGC presets to sort of keep it in that window, very much like a compeller. We want to keep that audio peaks and lows all within this, and then our processing can actually benefit those guys. But again, as you know, we're not doing any clipping. They sound better. I mean, I can listen to our high-end $10,000 audio processor at NAB, and we have de-emphasized AES output, and then I listen to the output of these streams on the monitors, and it just sounds good. It just sounds really good. It sounds full. We're no psychoacoustics. There's no anything crazy going on. It just sounds wholesome. So, we built a beast just for streaming.
Perhaps part of this is that the modulation wars are largely over, thank goodness.
Well, now they just, sorry, engineers, they just don't know they're doing it. I mean, it's the level, the term engineer, I think, does not hold the weight it did 25 years ago. And I think that we've got issues with the people, the program directors driving out to the transmitter on Saturday nights, trying to get themselves back on air. But yeah, I think that most engineers within reason, the older guys, are done with that, done with the loudness wars. Do you see it in South Florida?
No, I mean, it used to be, you were able to see I can look at this one, the iHeart engineers or the iHeart stations and the Odyssey stations, the Cox and whatnot, but not anymore. They're all about the same. They're all about level.
Yep. They're about consistency. And remember, they're all feeding everybody else now. See, this sort of keeps everybody honest.
Yeah.
Everybody's feeding hubs, and you're going to see more of this. I'm starting to see a lot of it in the middle and small, like some private owner says, I just bought 6 radio stations in Tennessee and I want to do centralized broadcasting. What do I do? No clue. But I'm seeing more and more of this. So, but at the end of the day, audio quality, I don't think it doesn't hold the weight it used to. People don't run around the station and talk about it like they used to. I know a lot of my customers go in and tweak engineering at night or tweak processing at night, and nobody says a word. It's different. I think the listening environment's different.
Well, no one's monitoring off air anymore because of the HD. If they're listening in cars, you already have the road noise. Most of the radio listenership is happening in automobiles. You have road noise, car noise, you have the kids, and then not to mention PPM.
Oh, Voltaire.
Yeah, once you get the PPM sound in your head, you can't get rid of it, and you're really processing for you're processing for the masses instead of trying to be that I need to be jumping off the dial and be the loudest guy in the market. That just doesn't exist anymore.
Isn't it true some of the new radios actually have built-in compression so that you may try to get louder, but the radio's got to push you back down?
I drive a car that's 7 years old, so I couldn't answer that.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm a radio engineer. I can't afford a new car.
Yeah. Allied question then, and we'll see if anybody else has a question. I don't mean to take over here, but the levels. We talk about the levels being put out on the stream, and how do you measure? How do you make sure that the user can get the right level set?
Well, obviously metering on the front of it. Our bigger boxes have got some other metering possibilities, but we say you want to keep your input around -12. You want to see the peaks on your meters coming in. Kelly, anything about outputs? Do you guys said anything? I got somebody else here to sit here in the lab. Yeah. Yeah, I don't. How do you guys deal with your levels on the outputs?
I mean, we basically, we Ron Popeil it. We set it, forget it.
What do you set it what do you set it to? That I don't know if there's any standards in streaming. Do you go for certain loudness value? Do you go for certain level value?
Ed, I think you set it to what you're listening to, and it sounds good to your stations, and because there are so many variables in listening devices, whether you're listening to, a streaming service that you belong to, a podcast, a download, your MP3s, everything is all over the place. So, set what's good to you. Obviously, you're going to listen to another radio station in your market. I know that when I set the True Oldie streaming up here in South Florida, I'll listen to other radio stations and just flip through. And as long as I'm competitive or I'm in that same area, but I'm not going to try to blast out, and I don't want to be 10 dB below them either.
Yeah, I've never.
One other thing, of course, if in traditional broadcast, the standard was a monitor, or the standard was the music director's car or whatever. Of course, with streams, we're listening on, in many cases, a completely different set of devices, whether it's excuse me, my Alexa, or I'm listening on earbuds, or I'm listening on noise canceling headphones. They're all different environments.
Yeah. I mean, I just think you're listening for overdriving and clipping. Yeah, and you can't process for all of that. You've got to find a happy median somewhere in the middle, neutral. Now, I'm looking at everybody on this call, and Mary's probably the youngest person. I visit a lot of radio and TV stations, a lot. And when I start talking to people, and the younger people I see, I ask them one question. I'm like, do you ever feel music? They're like, what? Like, feel music. Been to a concert, felt somebody hit the kick drum and it goes through your chest. When I was a kid, my dad had a big Sansui receivers and big clip speakers, and I'd shake the room and stuff like that. And yeah, and it's different. And the way we process and for FM, I think the streaming stuff sounds better, and I will contest that. And I personally believe, and I've seen it already, it's all going to be streaming. It's all going to be a stream. It's going to be a stream. Everybody's going to contribute to some type of service, and probably from that service at certain times of the day, it's going to go directly to the transmitter. And I'm not opposed to it. I mean, it's just the way it is. You guys are content. Most of the people are content creators, and there's all these different avenues how we're going to get content out there. It really doesn't change, but the traditional radio is changing. And I think you're going to see a lot in the next 2 years of crazy centralized broadcasting. And a lot of that's going to be streams. It's going to be streams. You're going to be going from, an Ascent in up in, or it's going to be Kodak audio, but most of it, but the traditional analog linear audio from point A to point B to the car stereo is going to change. So I think the stream's going to win. So I think you're going to see a lot more development that way. I don't think transmitters are going away. Hopefully the big broadcasters remember that you actually have a job to service the public. So you need to be local and and live and part of the community still. But I think you're going to see it. And I'll give you an example where this centralized broadcast, I think, or even like what iHeart's doing. Is there any iHeart guys on here? No? No. They're using some Sound Plus stuff. It's getting away from streaming here for a second, but Kelly and I are got to go to Charlotte next week, and we're going to do an update. And the engineer is going to simply call the knock in Cincinnati and say, hey, Wheatstone's getting ready to, where I used to have to go in and wait till 11:59 at night to go work on a radio station or a big complex on these network systems. We're going to tell iHeart Charlotte, hey, we're going to be there at 11 o'clock. The engineer is going to pick up his phone. He's going to call the knock. And by 11:30, they're going to say, hey, do whatever you want to do. Reboot servers, Zeta, STLs, Blade, services. It doesn't matter. So there is some really big advantages of getting around a system, going from a cloud-based streaming service directly to your transmitter. Hurricane season's getting ready to come. We live in North Carolina. The guys in Tampa have had their asses kicked lately. So, Beasley and Cox have all got stuff in North Carolina and Atlanta to feed those transmitters in case the studio complexes aren't there. So streaming's here to stay, and it's going to be a bigger part of it. It's where it lives, where it originates. You said it earlier about the A to Barry, about the A to D, D to A conversions and all that. That is definitely something that everybody still wants to be concerned about, because you want to have as less hops as possible. So, going from your facility up to an Amazon center, from your facility via IceCast out to your transmitter site. I don't know. We're seeing more and more of it, but the streams are definitely more important. And it seems like everybody for monitoring too, it's just easy.
Herb Squire in New York called it cascading codecs.
Well put. Yes. And you can hear it. I mean, I don't know anybody that's going to tell you they love satellite radio. When you listen to satellite radio, I don't know anybody that's going to tell you it sounds good, but it's convenient. That's about it.
I think also we've dumbed down as an industry and as communications people, we've dumbed down the audience to allow them to accept lesser quality audio. Cell phones, not as much as maybe 10 years ago, but you still have issues and garbledness with the cell phones, streaming audio, lagging video, watching podcasts or video casts and listening to podcasts. So the consumer has learned to accept a lesser quality. Not that we should give them that, but at times when we have to provide that, it doesn't seem to cause an issue. It's not like it was 10 or 15 years ago where, your PD would be like, hey, that song doesn't sound right, or now they grab songs that are being.
They get sent to them as MP3s.
They get sent to them as MP3s and FLAC and whatnot. And the audience, the listeners and the viewers have just learned to accept poor quality or lesser quality, less than perfection.
Yeah.
Tony, I'd say COVID was a big advocate for that when everybody started working from home and terrible Zoom connections and really bad audio, really bad video, bad sets, and people just accepted it. And so the quality just downgrades.
Yep. But all it took, Josh, was somebody in the market to go back to work. And it was like, You know, and so, yeah, and you know, like everybody talks about the podcasts are going to win everything, and I remind everybody, nobody likes hearing the groceries put on the table while somebody's reading the news. Nobody wants to hear dog bark in the background while I'm trying to sell you something. No, let's do a broadcast. So there is that. I mean, you know what it is, and I hate to say it, it's like the Voltaire.
Yeah,
What a terrible thing! But the minute somebody in the market got one,
everybody got one.
you had no choice.
Yep.
It's like a microwave or the VHS player back in the 80s.
Right, and everybody put their Voltaires at 11, and you heard it, and you couldn't get it out of your head, and everybody just accepted it.
But yes, I will tell you, Barry, I see more people accepting off air than I ever have before. I mean, people call me like, my Cisco went down. I'm driving to the station. I'm like, man, you got 4 stations out there. You're pretty relaxed, dude. You know, when Facebook went down for all those hours, and then when Amazon went down, that really, I'm going to be upfront, that helped me as the guy that was always saying, hey, if you want to put everything in a VM, great. Put it there where you can touch it and pull the power. You know, it's going to be a lot harder for you to go reboot a cloud. And then when all those failures started happening, sorry about that, I'm here in the factory. When all those failures started happening, everybody backed off on the cloud stuff. It was amazing. We saw everybody start pulling back. So I mean, I don't think he wants to be down for 6 hours.
Couple of questions here in the chat box. Scott Todd said he remembered how good AM radio used to sound. Now every car radio rolls off both the low and the high ends.
Yeah, it's a worldwide market. Remember now, they're making it's a worldwide market.
Some car radios don't have AM.
Yeah.
And then let's see, WEFW. Did AM ever sound good, or did we just not know any better?
It actually did sound good.
We could ask Leonard Kahn.
Yeah, it did sound good, and then you had FM, and you had something to compare it to before there was anything. I mean, people loved black and white TVs too. they were happy with black and white. So
Ray Lewis says, in his opinion, it's rare to see a BE that can do better than the presets. I've heard some really weird sounding audio from custom configurations. And Hal Hostetler, AM stereo through a product detector sounded pretty darn good.
yep.
Brian Black, when FM ducting is really bad, our AMs often sound better than what we can pick up on our FMs, except right next to the transmitter.
Yep.
They all have pluses and minuses. Get out the storm, and the AM's got a real problem. AM stereo, yeah, high end was pretty good. AM digital, yeah, it does not seem to be taking over as much as with FM.
No. Tony, you want to talk about Ascent for a minute?
Sure. So real quick, the reason why I'm here at Wheatstone, we've been working on integrating the Ascent with the WheatNet drivers into the Ascent server. The Ascent is our high-density audio codec. It is 1 or 2 rack units, depending on the flavors you buy, that talks to the IPL units. In this case, we have a 1 rack unit here at Wheatstone, running a 24-channel WheatNet driver. So it shows up in your WheatNet system as a 24-channel driver or 24-channel blade, allows you to integrate right into the system and send into any IP links or send into another Ascent system running WheatNet. The purpose here is to allow us to enter a Wheatstone facility, enter a Wheatstone NOC, and give you the full capabilities of using all the features that come into the IP link in our Ascent world, whether it's dynamic stream splicing, SRT, IP Connect, using the live look, allows you to have hitless operation with your audio, allows you to share content between your facilities and other facilities, allows you to use this to transport audio up into a cloud and talk to other IPL units. For instance, they were talking about Cox, and Jay was talking about Cox and whatnot. They are IPLs everywhere. They have a 24-channel WheatNet Ascent server that they're going to deploy in Orlando. So they'll be able to generate audio and feed any of the transmitter sites in South Florida from their Orlando studio. They're also going to do one from Orlando. They're going to do one in Atlanta. We have different operators doing that. South Carolina Educational Radio will have multiple Ascent servers from all their 5 different studios. So they'll be able to send Wheatstone information from one building to another, one studio to another, be able to encapsulate all that information within the IP link world, again, using dynamic stream splicing or SRT and whatnot. So we're proud to say that we show that the NAB had great response. We're here doing some tweaking. Next step for us is to get GPIOs and SLIOs to work across these links so we can share GPIOs between facilities, as well as have map GPIOs from WheatNet into the IP link world, because a couple other features we added to the IP link is store and playback, where you're able to store audio within the IP link, the 100N, the 100C, the 100E, and the 200N that's coming out, and through a virtual GPIO or a real GPIO, launch audio. Great for satellite replacement, top of the hour ID, launch a commercial and whatnot, IDs. So, and that is evolving to add for disaster recovery and parachute mode. So that's the reason why I'm here, and it makes perfect sense that we use that part of that, the WheatNet drivers, as part of this facility, since it ties in to everything that they're doing here, and it allows us to basically create a cohesive ecosphere in all of the Wheatstone facilities that you may have as a company.
Yeah, and it's hardware. There's no hardware. So we've been doing this for years with other cards. We've made cards and interfaces for other codec manufacturers where you actually had like a little mini blade running in their hardware. There's no extra Ethernet jacks. There's nothing. It's a software solution for Gates from Wheatstone, which is high density, low latency. And for the Wheatstone users, it just shows up as a driver in your system. So it's really, really easy. So yeah, once we get the integrated SLIOs and stuff, then we'll have metering and all the screen builder stuff we do in the virtual switch panels, and the SS8s will be able to control all the interplex stuff. Or for broadcasters that want to go city to city, we do this a lot internationally. We hand off city to city, top of the hour, very similar as we would operate in one facility with 2 control rooms and a newsroom. We do this from, Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney together. So have an interplex be able to encapsulate that audio and that logic and follow it around the planet and just get to the end point at the same time. It'll be great. So.
Well, it certainly seems you're making it a whole lot simpler than it has been.
Yeah. Well, it needs to be reliable. That's like the biggest thing. We don't want to, I love you guys. I love selling you stuff, but I don't really want to hear from you again until you want to buy something else. So even though this stuff is whiz bang cool, man, I just want it to work and be reliable. So having Tony's box as a Linux box, all the blades are Linux. We put a Linux driver on there. And I tell people, we really, really try at Wheatstone. It's our software running on our hardware, which is like the best recipe for success. It always doesn't work out that way, but it's the best chance. And that's why in the past we wanted to work with other people. We put our hardware in their boxes, so we were sort of control freaks. And now with the Gates thing, it seems the Linux driver just made a lot of sense. So they're the first ones we're doing that with.
And it allows us, again, to leverage what we've done for the last 10 years with the IP Link series, with the hitless operation and the redundancy and the tunnels we create and security keys and everything that we do for audio streams and control and marrying data together. It made perfect sense to team up with Wheatstone and, again, allow them to use their drivers and have them like the drivers, because we know it works, and drop it right into our box. And it just made perfect sense for us to team up this way. And like I said, I'm ecstatic by it, because as not only Interplex guy, but as someone who deploys Wheatstone in places, and I'm a Wheatstone user, I've got studios that I'm in charge of. it just makes my life much easier to have something like this in there and just be able to point audio exactly where you want it to go, and it's going to get there.
Yeah. And for me, I mean, for my big clients, the IMGs and Learfields of the world that are, moving around hundreds of channels of audio, we needed a high density device like Ascent to pull this off, where I didn't have to have an entire rack of tie line boxes to do what I can in the Ascent unit. So, and it cuts down on hardware for you guys. And then Ascent too could be off the shelf hardware, right, Tony? It's nothing special.
Yep, yeah, it can be off the shelf, and we sell you the license, we sell you the software, or we supply the turnkey solution.
Good things happening out there.
Any other questions from the field here for Tony or Jay? Anyone want to know anything about streaming that you don't know now?
Anybody want to know where dead circuit cards from Wheatstone goes? I made, everybody's like, that's a virtual backboard. Like, no, I made this during COVID.
Very good. Hey, Tony, as long as you're there, I'll ask the question. You mentioned, I think last time we got together, that the Intraplex was used by many government agencies. In fact, it was picked because of reliability and serviceability.
Basically, if it's a 3-letter agency, we're pretty much in there, whether it's the legacy products or the IP links. The legacy products are still very much active, and I mean legacy being the T1 shelves with the VF cards, the data cards, still very active. We are, and I hate to say this because people are going to be like, yeah, you're the ones creating the problem in Newark. No, we supply the secure equipment at the end of the communications device. So L3 is really our client for the FAA. And they maintain the data connections between point A and point B. Now, if the servers go down on either end of that connection, that's not their problem. But they're very much part of this what's going on at Newark and what's going to turn around, and so are we. Moving from the T1 world to the IP world, our legacy products have done that with the CM30 card now for 10 plus years. So we've been waiting for it. We've been prepared to get them off of T1s and put them on to put them on IP. So our gear aggregates the data. Basically it's a MUX, and so we're in every FAA office. We're in every airport. We're across the world. France uses the IP links. They have 100 GatesAir transmitters and IP links to do an SFN network for their traffic advisory network for their highway, their interstate system. So we provide that. We do that for the state of Maryland. We are the backbone for New York City fire life safety. There's a big building in Queens that has hundreds of our legacy gear, racks of this, part of their two-way radio systems for fire life safety. Newark Airport, as well as not only the airports themselves, but like the people mover, the train at Newark. They just purchased a bunch of equipment to get off of T1s and go on to IP to move all the information IP.
It was just a flash on television. Denver International Airport loses comms for 90 seconds. Seems like
I need to go write an order up. I'll be right back. No.
Seems like a contagious event.
Well, I will tell you, I go up to Melbourne. I go to L3 a couple of times a year, and the contract that was granted by the past administration to upgrade the facilities was over a 15-year period. And in addition to that, there is another 7-year transition where they are allowed to operate on both systems for an additional 7 years. So I think that they're kind of accelerating that now, which I know L3 is ecstatic about. They're part of this, as well as us, because that's, we're going to be able to see a lot of our CM5, the T1 modules come out and go into IP modules. And move everything through IP, and all the features that we have in the IP world with dynamic stream splicing and SRT and all the redundancies that we have built in, we're able to do that with our legacy gear and our new RCM30 cards. We can run in both T1 and IP mode at the same time in hybrid mode. So we're prepared for this, and we have been for years. I've been with GatesAir now for 7 years, and 7 years ago we were talking about this. So it's good to see that this is moving along a lot faster. It's a shame it has to be under these conditions, but at least we know it's moving forward.
Yep. We appreciate that. Well, Jay, Tony, really appreciate you guys coming in, speaking with us, showing off your nice new gear. And I'm sure that everyone knows that they can go to wheatstone.com for information. Do you have a card you want to throw up real quick with your phone number or something?
No, I've been doing this for 29 years. I'm all good. Just if you hopefully you have a Wheatstone salesman. If not, Mary sells our stuff too.
Well, that's a good point, because Broadcast Depot is part of what we're doing here on Thursdays, and they help support us. And Mary, well, let you talk for just a moment.
So we've got, I'm going to talking about IP. We've got the Diva products that are low cost, that's good for backups. Everybody wants a backup, but they don't want to spend a lot of money. So you can do like a DB91 RX and TX, and it's an economical backup. And so,
Back up to the Intraplex,
yeah.
so you can supply both of those.
I can supply both of those.
And
Yep, they are Interplex dealers. Mary can quote you, and I can help you design a system, and Mary can send you build your quote.
of
I've
course,
sold a few of them this year.
Yep, absolutely.
and we know Mary has background at GatesAir as well.
Yeah, eons ago.
Mary used to ship shoes to my customers when they bought transmitters from her.
Well, we sure
True story.
appreciate Mary being with us, and Tim will pop in from time to time, I hope, but we're glad to have Mary here. She's got good advice.
I've just got a lot of history behind me.
All right. Well, again, thank you, gentlemen, and we'll have you back, I hope, before too long.
Everybody take care. Have a good weekend coming up.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Be well.